everyone! Welcome to the second episode of Career Insight, and today we're going to be looking at design in tech. So with me I have Jules, Melody, and Jay, and I'll leave them to just do their own introduction.
Hi, I'm Jules, and I'm currently a designer at GovTech. Previously, I was at a startup called Chope, and I've been in this line for 1.5 years.
Cool. Melody?
Yeah, hi, I'm Melody. I'm currently a product designer at Facebook, and before this, I was also at a startup. I was at a startup called Beam, which is like micro-mobility and service.
Hey, my name is Jay, currently lead designer at Grab. Actually, before this, I was in China doing design, so yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's super cool.
yeah, it's
Do
pretty
you speak
chill.
Chinese?
I can speak some Mandarin. Idiom.
Wow.
First question is, what's the difference between product designer and UX designer?
I think it depends a lot on what's actually in the JD, and to be honest, it depends on the size of the company as well. I feel like at smaller companies, it becomes even more like kind of indistinct. Like you pretty much do everything anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
I buy that. I mean, like, yeah, if you're at a startup, it could, to be honest, like that could be a product designer, and they may just be looking for a product designer based on the JD. But nowadays, everything's just been blurred in general.
And what do you guys do like day to day as designers in tech? I think before I joined my first tech company, I had no idea like what is design like in tech. So I only think about like designers as people maybe like doing like posters or the very traditional kind of design. So please educate us.
Do you think it will make things look good?
Make things easy to use. Now that's
Oh, what did you learn?
Yeah. You live the right people. Yes.
One of the things someone told me recently, which I find very interesting, is that communication is the job. Like, a lot of designers want to say like, okay, I just want to do design, be like not involve me. And obviously there's an extent to which you should probably be doing more design. But part of design work, I think, that maybe isn't always obvious at the beginning is how much of your work is explaining about the design to people, like whether that is like your decisions or whether that's like how the research factors into the design. And yeah, I guess to sum it up, I think a lot of my day now is a lot of meetings because we're trying to talk about like, okay, what are the problems we want to solve, right? Before you even really get into the visual stuff or the direction stuff, what are the problems we want to solve? Who are we solving them for? All these things are kind of things that ideally you want to have agreed upon with your whole team. So it's not just like designers among themselves being like, I think this is the problem, let's design for it, and then when you pass it to someone else, they're like, hang on, this does not like what we're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, obviously on top of the actual sort of visual stuff and interaction stuff as well.
A lot of designers assume that you'll just be in isolation, just working on your own work, just focus on design work. I think as you become more senior, or at larger companies or maybe startups, you'll have to take on more responsibilities of actually aligning people, having that conversation with people. I think a lot of us also look at the metrics, whether business or data, based on like the usage of the features or buttons or whatever. And we have to pretty much, not argue, but like sell your work, and it's all about storytelling, right? I think to really push like really good design, you have to get people to agree to what you're building, right? And I think Jules and Melly mentioned it that, and one way to do that is not just making beautiful design. You have to actually bring up valid data points, metrics, user research, and to push great design out to your users, right? So
Yeah, beautifully said.
Okay, so the next question is, what's the proudest design or like the proudest project that you've launched or done?
I would probably lean towards like things I've done where, even if it wasn't the best, like situation wasn't the best, it's kind of something that I can see the impact on real people, like so one of the things I did at Beam actually was it was just an internal tool. So Beam is a micro-mobility company, and so a big part of that is making sure that operations is smooth, because if obviously you don't see a scooter in the right point in time or place, you don't, I'm sure at Grab this is obviously also a thing, but if the operations isn't smooth, you won't get a good user experience, right? So I made a tool to help them find those scooters, and I didn't have that much bandwidth to spend on it. It's pretty ugly, but But it made a big difference to the people on the ground. It shortened that time by a very measurable amount, and it made a lot of them like really happy. So for me, I think that's like the first thing I can think of, something that I can see the measurable value of in terms of like the difference it made to people.
So I'm gonna talk about something that I think is my proudest design work, which will go to show that how much work there needs to be done in the background for something that's quite simple. So being in the government, so I work at the Manpower Ministry, and then because government officers are very cautious, and they need a lot of convincing to even change a small bit of their plan. So basically, the service that I'm working on helps employers to apply for work passes for foreign manpower, and then the end result that I got was that I got the buy-in to design and to build a reactivation flow for customers that were locked out of the system. So usually they have to recreate their new accounts, and it's the same it's the same lengthy process one more time.
Okay.
So right now we got a buy-in for a reactivation flow, and then that's my proudest work because it really took a lot of work just to convince a lot of people to say yes to very simple thing.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially like at maybe like government agencies where especially they have to be so cautious that things haven't changed in 20 years.
I guess I'll just go to the one that most people know. I redesigned Grab Food, so I was the only designer in 2017, which was very stressful on the consumer side. There are different sides of food. First designer I know was very stressful because I think being the lone designer on a consumer product and not having all these resources around you was very bad. In the beginning, yes.
Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know you were the only one there then.
I was the lone designer on the consumer
Oh,
side,
no.
and then I pretty much was doing all like the reviews with like high stakeholders in general. And so it was very stressful, and this was a time when Grab was like, we're gonna invest in Grab Food, and there was like nobody except for these 3 designers, and I was the only one. And it was fascinating just to see where it's gone from there. So now it's like this crazy. And I was also there when it became a super app. Like this is before pre-super app.
Yeah.
So it's just fascinating to see that happen too. So that, I guess, that was the proudest moment.
You'd have to build everything from like the sign up page to like the ordering food page, like
Everything.
how it's displayed,
Yeah.
all the buttons, all the like how big the icons are.
There
everything.
was no design system back then either.
Okay, so
I'm feeling so hard on that.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Did you have any like researchers or?
At one point we did not until
Oh my
we got
gosh.
yeah.
That's incredible.
So we did all the user research. My manager, I, and the other guys were just.
That's incredible. I think Grab Food is like one of the things I use the most often in my life.
really?
Yeah, really.
Another thing to add is also like I think I learned that content was like the most important thing, especially for the food stuff. So that actually factored into my timeline, like doing localization content. Like I totally forgot that was a thing. I didn't know content was so important back in 2017. So
Can
much
you give
travel.
an example of like content? Because I mean, I'm not.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. So
Yeah, that's a good
good
question, yeah.
So okay, example, on user research, the content button to check out in Indonesian was a certain word and it didn't convert well. So like I was like, I'm making up numbers now. So because I have to, I can't say
Yes,
specific
yes.
numbers. So I'm making up numbers. It was like 10 to 15% conversion rate of actually checking out on the old app. When we went to user research, we changed the checkout button to something more local. It's like 30 to 40% conversion on people checking out.
Okay, so it's like the terms and the words that you're using in the app. Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Are you able to share like how long it took to build out Grab Food?
Aside from like I had the same issue with Jules, like engineering had to do like a whole refactoring of code. Code was everywhere. That took months, but literally within like 4 or 5 months they rebuilt Grab Food. Which
It's
is
impressive.
which is sort of nuts.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Where did you guys graduate from? And how did you end up in design? So like school, major, and then how did you end up here?
Okay.
I graduated from Fine Arts in NTU. I majored in photography.
Yeah.
I was a freelance photographer, and also my side passion is music. Since very young, I was a freelance DJ, club DJ.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Cool.
And then I had a full-time job in a camera rental place.
Okay.
Okay, so that kind of like helped with the freelance photo jobs. So that was my job for like 2 years or so after graduating. And then I learned about this boot camp at General Assembly.
Do you remember the name of the boot camp?
General Assembly is a user experience design immersive.
User Experience Design Immersive.
UXDI.
Okay.
Looking back, I wouldn't actually go for the course. I would actually speak to someone in the industry first. Like if I had known Jay back then, I would have spoken to Jay. And then just talk to someone in the industry.
But what would you have like wanted to find out from talking to someone in the industry?
What I have.
Like what would you have wanted to find out? Like talking to Jay, like
Oh.
how would that have changed things?
It may have changed, it could have framed things more clearly to me as to what I needed to learn.
Okay.
So because I was saying Jay teaches you a lot, but you need to be cognizant of what skills that you need to use and what skills recruiters are looking for.
So I think my background is I graduated from a university in the UK with a degree in politics and international studies.
Cool.
I didn't know about UX when I graduated, and yeah, my first job was in civil service. I was pretty bad at it, to be honest. But yeah, I guess what happened for me was kind of going out to work and understanding that, like, you know, what work is, right? Work's different from school. You don't have someone telling you what to do all the time. At least for me, I felt that I needed to have some kind of appreciation for what I did, you know, in order to be able to kind of continue doing it. And so throughout all of my school life, right, I was always kind of the person who made t-shirts, besides magazine covers and things like that. But I never really thought of it as a potential job then, because it wasn't something that was kind of in my scope of you know, what a good job might be, right? You know, parents, usually there's a few things they recommend and you don't really know what else, so you try for those things. So yeah, so kind of after that first step into the working world, I basically, it triggered me to think about, you know, what else is out there, right? I came across this thing called UX, and I did actually a different thing from you. The courses were expensive, and so my first reaction was very much, you know, I've made a website before. So yeah, so I was like, yeah, let me find someone who'll let me make the app for them. I'm like, yeah, I want to make an app. I think I was very lucky to find people who would who would willingly take me on despite not having any experience. I think I was also in a privileged enough position to not kind of be, you know, in a situation where I needed to, like, you know, be concerned about having a roof over my head. Right. So I quit that job. I started by making an app. It's still online, but it's
For yourself, your self-use?
no. I found someone who is working on an app. It's a heritage app. It's a heritage trail for Sikh heritage in Singapore. And so that was my very first time I made an app icon. The first time I made user flows. And someone told me about when I designed it the first time, the engineer was like, I can't do this. Like, what is this? I was like, it's a button. And he's like, this is an iOS. I'm like, what? so that was just diving straight into the deep end. And not really knowing anything. But I think I was very lucky to have that, because that was really my first indication of, wow, this is something I really want to do. So I think I was lucky enough to have that. What I essentially did was to do this on the side while working another job, to try and understand if this is something I want to do. I actually thought of taking a course after that if it was something I turned out to want to do. But again, lucky enough, I found another gig after that. Then I got my first startup job. Then I got another job after that. That's pretty much it. So I think the value of, like, being able to try projects yourself is something that shouldn't be undervalued. And if you're lucky enough to have that chance, you know, I think that's really, really helpful, at least in my experience.
So, I started off as a history major, actually.
Wow! Hey, social sciences!
I was super into European history as well,
Yeah.
medieval stuff. I don't know why. I made swords, art, you name it. I was into it.
Awesome!
Pretty sick.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know what happened. I guess the first college I went to, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this, do history, and then for whatever reason, it changed into creative writing. So I switched colleges, went creative writing, and then I switched my major again to robotics. Yeah. So it was a robotics major for like, well, it was called new media, but robotics was like the focus for it.
Okay, cool.
And I was like, yeah, I guess this is cool. But back then, like, your mandatory course that you had to take was a website building course as well. So I took the website building course. And mind you, this is when UX didn't exist. This is like all Flash animation.
Oh shit.
I'm dating myself. So,
So you can cut that part out.
yeah. Pretty much, like, my friend's like, dude, your sets are beautiful. I'm like, why aren't you in the design conservatory? I didn't know what design was. I also was like, it's design.
Yeah.
Plus, like, I definitely had the Asian parent thing where it's like, if you become a designer or artist, you're not going to make money. You're not going to survive. I think you probably relate. And that's really like, it's like, I don't know if I want to do this. But I applied after some convincing, and I got in. And then, mind you, it was like brand design. It was like brand and print. UX did not exist back then. So I got out of school. I literally just took on any job I could find in like design terms. So I actually took on animation design for a little bit, doing live animations, which was very difficult and also very stressful for television industry.
Oh shit.
I hated it. It's stressful.
Yeah.
It's so stressful. And then I moved to California, and then I took a job in presentation design, and everyone laughs at that because this is the crazy part. The presentations that we used to do when we worked in the studio actually did all of Apple's keynotes. We actually worked with Steve Jobs for the iPad 2 release and all this stuff. So I didn't do the keynotes. Don't look shocked, but Apple does actually work with these different agencies that do the keynotes. They actually ended up hiring most everyone that was on the Apple team to their side, which is really funny.
Oh.
So yeah, but
Okay.
presentation designs again.
It's a thing.
It's a thing, but I wasn't my thing, right? But I was lucky because back then the iPhone or iPad just came out, and everyone was like learning about responsive design and iOS, and then Android just came out after that. So we all learned together. There was no YouTube, no boot camps. So, but yeah, I got very lucky because it was literally when it became a thing. We all just learned together about it.
It's awesome though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just stopped after that. Yeah.
If you want to be a designer, you have to be like artsy, good at drawing, and like very good at like colors and drawing and things like that. Do you agree?
It depends on what designer you are, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
At least
yeah.
for product design, maybe not.
Yeah.
Also because I've survived without being
Too much.
that. Yeah.
Okay, but then what do you need to be a good designer? I mean, sorry, I'm just like now my mind's like.
I mean, we talked about it earlier, right? It's like about your storytelling and how like you get people to align with you, right? I think to be a good product designer nowadays, right?
Yeah. I actually think that's great. I think so. Being able to draw or like kind of make graphics really well is kind of almost one part of it, right? It's like digital communication. Sure, that really helps. It really helps. And of course, you can also be like a really good designer on like the UI side, on like the interface side, on like buttons and stuff. But I guess the short answer is there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
And in I think really any gathering of designers, you'll find people sort of with different strengths in different areas. So one of those is the visual side of it. It can be like animation as well. They're really good specialists in that. It can be prototyping, wireframing. There's some people who are really good at product strategy as a designer, and that's really valuable, I think, especially when you're in product, when you work on an app and stuff. That's just one of those things. There's user research for sure, but that's
Coders, like code.
yeah. There's people who like are good at both the design and the coding of the design. Those are just all. I think the beauty of it is that there's really like this wide range of skills that you can be good at to call yourself a designer. I think it took me a long time to get there as well because like I kind of always had this chip on my shoulder like I have to be good at all this stuff. But I think the reality in my experience is just like there are people who are good at different bits. You kind of at least need to know, like have some self-awareness. Like okay, I'm not that good at this thing and she's great at this thing, so let's ask her for help. But I think that it's just fun. one piece of it, guys. Drawing helps, but yeah.
How about you?
Can I just say, so
Yeah.
what you were saying,
Mm.
coming to thinking about, yes, actually UI skills are important, but not in the way that you think of
Yeah.
UI, because I find that at work I think about the UI of the slide that I do to talk to my team with. So
The user experience of your presentation. Presentation design.
yes, correct. Like things like user flow diagrams, even the UI of the
Yeah.
user flow diagram is important because if I don't get it right, I don't sell it across.
Yeah.
If my stakeholders are confused by where does this go to, then I'm not doing my job.
Okay.
So it's like at the end of the day.
So I feel like to summarize, I'm getting like the short answer is like yes, to a certain degree you have to have like that eye for like visuals, but it's not the only thing, and even if you have that, it doesn't mean you're going to be a good designer. Okay, the second one is, and I mean I personally know that it's not. Okay, wait, no. Correct me if I'm wrong. Designers are paid quarterly.
You would know.
I mean, it depends on which city you're in. I'm not trying to sound, but if you're in Berlin, you're not going to be paid as much as maybe someone in San Francisco. Like San Francisco's making probably 3 times more than like Berlin right now. But I wouldn't want to be there because you're going to be taxed as an American. You're going to be taxed like 40%. So yeah, not worth it. But yeah, I think they're paid extremely well in certain cities. That's for sure. Singapore, they pay okay. Sure. What do you think?
Oh, that's an interesting perspective. I actually don't know comparatively how well Singapore does. I only know that Singapore, maybe now, you have depends on the size of the company and the design maturity.
Yeah, that's true.
So if you have, if it's a smaller company, I keep saying startup, I know, but that's kind of the most,
Agency, startup.
agency startup, they're kind of maybe the more default ones. Because there's a wide range, I think, even at the end. And then there's the bigger companies coming in lately. I think that's roiling the waters a little bit. I think on that end, they're able to probably afford more, but also they have more specializations in terms of design, and so that's probably also why it's a little higher. But I think the short answer is I don't think you necessarily get paid a lot. I'm saying this from the perspective of having worked at startups before, where it's like,
In Singapore.
yeah, it's like okay, but I think it depends a lot where you are and what you're doing. So okay, sorry, that's like not that's like typical designer answer. It depends where you are, depends where you work. Yeah, but then in Singapore, for what it's worth, I think it's a very wide range.
And then
Yeah,
being
GovTech.
in GovTech, they pay nice. Is that right? Comfortable, and then
Comfortable.
and the thing is they
Yeah.
do surveys with the private sector,
Okay.
and then they do try to match our pays.
Okay.
Oh,
We
okay.
was in the private sector in Singapore,
Okay.
not in SF.
That's the, yeah.
What's the design community like in Singapore? Is it large? Do people meet up? Are they friendly?
Okay, I used to run events at Grab. They were called Shift events.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if people remember, there weren't a lot of events here. I guess for me, I just wanted to help out Southeast Asia in general, not just Singapore, but bring events and just cool topics. Because there weren't a lot of events in 2017, 2018. I'm not sure what it was like for you two.
In 2017, I ran the sketch meetups for Singapore.
Oh, that was you.
It was me.
I went to one of those. It was a chill, man. Yeah.
Thank you, but it was short-lived
Yeah, what happened?
because
Oh,
I cannot in good faith do one more because my job keeps taking.
Oh, right. Got it.
I think I have to pass it on. I have to pass it on to someone else. And fast forward to now, then I think at least within my sphere, the most prominent one is the Figma meetup.
Yeah, that's probably the largest community here.
Yeah. I think we recently met on that. They
Yeah.
have a Discord channel. We met on the Discord channel.
And can I do a shout out to the Telegram group, Design Singapore?
Yes. Can you say it to the camera?
Design SG on Telegram. It's a Telegram group.
So what do you do on the Telegram group? Like what announcements are being made? What's being talked about?
There's a lot of sharing between different disciplines of design, not just product design.
Yeah, it's pretty true.
Design too.
What do you advise people who are trying to apply to jobs in design here? And what do you advise for them to do to prepare?
I think there are a lot of resources online about applying to, especially big name tech companies. Like those processes are almost. I think you can find out everything about how they work online. I think the main thing is just to again, the storytelling component I think is really important, right? Because in interview, you don't have the luxury of knowing the team. You don't have the luxury of like understanding where that person, like how much about design do they understand. You have to have, your portfolio is really just one way of storytelling. And then when you get into the interview, you have another chance to storytell. And that's where you tell the story of not only the work, but also of you and how you're like kind of with it. That's how I approach thinking about interviews generally. I mean, the work is obviously, the work obviously has to be there. You have to have a certain standard. You know, you wouldn't get an interview otherwise, right? So I would just imagine that you should think about it in terms of like how better can I, where are the gaps that I can fill in for a story that they've already seen, like part of it's like the teaser and it's the trailer, and now you're about to give them the movie. Like how can you do that in a way that's convincing, that's honest also to who you are as a designer? Because I mean, I think most people when they hire you, they don't expect like a perfect 10, like you can do every single thing kind of designer. They're looking out for something, and you just need to be honest about what kind of designer you are and what you can bring and what you're still willing to learn. I think those are all sort of good things to bring.
But every company has different standards in general. Not every company is looking for the same thing, right? I think every company is going to have different procedures and standard how they approach hiring. I think I like the analogy that when we use like this is a performance that you have to show up. I feel like to tell people that it's like a comedy stand-up. Like yeah, it is, right? Like if you bomb and no one like asks you questions, aka laugh at you, then no one's gonna be interested in hiring you. But if you how you storytell and actually tell your story and people start asking questions, then you pick up on they're laughing. It's, comedy stand-up, right? They're laughing, they're interested, they're engaged. And that's what you want. And I think I also tell people take interviews at companies that you just don't care about, and it's right to practice.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, like if you're not going to get better by just sulking at home after a failed interview. You're going to get better after actually taking a real interview with maybe a company that you're not so stoked about, and maybe you're just desperate. Like just keep doing it, taking those interviews because you're going to get better. So yeah.
Do you have any advice for any fresh graduates, anybody who's trying to explore design and tech, anything?
I would say the most important thing is to get working experience.
Yeah.
And more than going for courses, though you can also go for courses, just to make sure that you link up with someone, like any one of us, to know what courses are good and it's a good fit for you. But back to my point about working experience. So pro bono work is great. To get something that you can storytell in your next interview.
I agree. You should do free work if you can. I think take initiative to make your own project. I think if you're just coming out of school, it's fine to redesign Spotify. I think we're used to that. We're used to seeing that work, especially if you come out of school, right?
Yeah. I think just doing the work. I think doing the work is probably the most important thing. I don't think necessarily that not doing you don't have to not do the course. I've spoken to people who, after talking to them and realizing like maybe just how big their gaps are, I felt like maybe some kind of course or maybe even a self-learn thing would at least help fill in those gaps so you know what you're getting into a little bit. Because everyone starts somewhere, right? But yeah, like even a redesign is a starting point. My terrible first app that I will not name was a great starting point. I didn't get paid for it. I got it because I offered to do it free. And I understand that that's not, I think one big theme that people always talk about in design, sort of like presentations and interviews is, should I do the work for free? And I think that's a very valid question to ask. But I definitely think that if you're in a position where you can, especially if you are very, very new, in a position where you can sort of afford to spend some time on something like that, it will, in the long run, kind of be helpful. Yeah, but I think definitely, I've spoken to people who are kind of really against the free work thing. So.
It goes both ways.
Yeah, right. It goes both ways. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on to this episode, and I'll put all their links to their profiles into the description box. And if you guys are interested, they're super nice and super friendly, and they did this all as a favor to me. So thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Career Insight. I hope it shed just a little bit of light into what designers and tech companies do. I apologize for the change in background. The reason why I had to refilm this ending was because we had issues with the original video, and so I had to redo it at a different time in a different place on my own. Anywho, if you'd like to learn more, you can always follow Jay, Jules, and Melody on their LinkedIn. I'll put their profiles in the description box below. They're really passionate at what they do, they're really good at what they do, and they're really, really friendly as well. Don't forget to also check out the Singapore Design Telegram group that Jules mentioned in the video earlier on if you'd like to join some physical or virtual meetups or discuss design topics with the local community. Lastly, I know this video has been really simple, but if there are other roles in tech that you'd like to understand more about or do a deeper dive in, let me know and I can see what I can pull together. The aim of Career Insight is to really spread awareness on roles in tech for people who are exploring careers in this industry, or maybe they're fresh graduates and they just want to find out what kind of opportunities are out there. So thank you and see you on the next episode.